One of these plants is probably in your yard right now, and if you have a dog or a child, you need to know which one it is before today is over. Most people who grow them have no idea. They bought them at a nursery. They've had them for years. Some of them are the prettiest plants on the property. I'm talking about plants that have sent children to the emergency room. Plants that have killed dogs, with a survival rate below 50% even with aggressive veterinary treatment. Plants whose sap can cause serious injury if it gets in your eyes. And they're in millions of American gardens right now. Maybe yours. I'm going to take you through 7 of the most common offenders, plants people grow on purpose, sometimes for decades, and I'll tell you exactly what makes each one dangerous, what to watch for if someone's been exposed, and what you can plant instead that gives you the same look with none of the risk. I'm Clara. I kept a garden long before I kept a stethoscope. Let's walk through what's hiding in yours. Plant number 1, Oleander. I'm starting here because it is the most widespread dangerous plant in America, and it might be the most underestimated. If you live in California, Arizona, Texas, or Florida, there's a very real chance you pass it every single day. It lines highways. It grows in office park medians. It sits in planters outside shopping centers, and it is beautiful, genuinely beautiful. Those long, dark leaves, those clusters of pink, red, or white blooms. I understand why people plant it, but here's what very few people know. Every single part of this plant contains a compound called oleandrin. Now, imagine your heart is a pump. It has its own electrical system, its own rhythm, its own timing. Oleandrin is what happens when someone throws a wrench into that electrical panel. It slows the rhythm, then scrambles it. In a small child or a medium-sized dog, a single leaf can be enough to cause that scrambling to start. A single leaf. Now, oleander is bitter, genuinely bitter, and that's what keeps most adults from accidentally eating it. The taste is a warning. But here's the thing. Children don't always connect bitter with dangerous. And for pets and livestock, dry clippings mixed into yard debris or hay lose that sharp edge. Animals have ingested fallen dry leaves without the same instinctive rejection. That's how exposures happen, not from someone sitting down and eating the plant, but from a moment of curiosity or from clippings left where a dog roams. And it isn't just ingestion. Burning oleander cuttings, which people do all the time when they're clearing a yard, releases those same compounds into the smoke. There are documented cases of people being hospitalized from inhaling the smoke of burning oleander. You don't even have to touch the plant. So, what do you do if it's already in your yard? First thing, never prune or cut oleander with bare hands. Thick gloves, long sleeves, and safety glasses if you're doing a serious trim. The sap from a cut stem is a concentrated version of everything in the leaves. It gets on your skin. You get a rash. It gets in your eyes. That's an emergency. Second rule, do not burn it and don't put it on a compost pile. Double bag the cuttings in heavy-duty garbage bags and put them in your household trash. Not yard waste, household trash, so it goes to a landfill. If you're removing a large plant entirely, call your local waste management and ask about their protocol for toxic plant disposal. If you choose to keep it, some folks do, and that's their call, it needs to be completely fenced off from children and animals, not just tucked away. Actually inaccessible, and every adult in your household needs to know exactly what it is and what to do if anyone touches it. Signs of oleander exposure. Here's what you're watching for. Nausea, drooling in animals, vomiting, abdominal pain, then a slow or irregular heartbeat, and drowsiness coming on fast. In severe cases, confusion, difficulty breathing, collapse. The heart effects can begin within hours of a small exposure. You do not wait to see if it gets better. You call poison control at 1-800-222-1222 or go to the emergency room immediately. If it was skin contact, rinse with cool running water for 15 minutes. Don't rub. Eye contact. Flush continuously with clean water and call right away. If a child may have swallowed any part of the plant, do not induce vomiting unless poison control specifically tells you to. One more thing before you call. Log the time you think exposure happened and bring a leaf or a photo of the plant to the emergency room. That identification matters more than people realize. It tells the doctor exactly what they're dealing with before a single test comes back. The safe alternative, if you love that tall, dense, flowering hedge look, plant hibiscus instead. Same lush tropical feel, flowers in pink, red, white, and coral. Similar height, not a shred of toxicity, completely safe for children and pets, and just as beautiful as anything Oleander ever gave you. Plant number 2 is one I find the most bittersweet, because foxglove is genuinely one of the most beautiful plants you can grow in a temperate garden. Tall, dramatic spires of tubular flowers, purple and cream with their spotted throats. They look like something from an English countryside painting. And in Oregon, they grow wild in the forest clearings. I love the way they look. I do. But foxglove is also the plant that gave us Digitalis, one of the most powerful heart medications in modern medicine. Now, in a controlled pharmaceutical form, that's a tool that has saved countless lives. In a backyard garden with a curious 3-year-old or a dog that eats whatever it finds. It's a different story entirely. Think of your heart's electrical system like a metronome. It keeps a steady tick. What foxglove compounds do, when they get into the body in the wrong dose, is slow that metronome down, then make it erratic, then potentially stop it. The dose is the difference between medicine and poison. Out in the garden, there's no way to control the dose. The plant contains compounds called cardiac glycosides throughout leaves, flowers, seeds, and even the water in a vase where cut foxglove has been sitting. The seeds are particularly concentrated, and they're tiny. A child could pick them up without either of you noticing. If it's already in your garden, here's what you need to know. Foxglove self-seeds. That's part of what makes it such a prolific cottage garden plant, and it's also why removal is a multi-season commitment. Not a single afternoon. Wear gloves when handling it, and don't touch your face during or after. The compounds can absorb through skin with prolonged contact. Deadhead the flowers before they go to seed to cut down next year's population. When removing plants entirely, bag the root ball, the stalks, and every visible seed head you can find. Double bag it all for trash disposal. Same rule as the oleander. No burning, no compost, signs of exposure. And this is the one where the delay is the danger. In the first hour or two, nausea, vomiting, stomach pain. Fairly ordinary looking. Then the heart effects begin. A very slow pulse, or a very irregular one. Things may start looking yellow or blurry. Confusion, weakness in the limbs. In children and small dogs, the timeline compresses. You don't wait it out. You call poison control or get to the emergency room and you bring the plant or a clear photo with you. Log the time of exposure, even a rough estimate of how much may have been eaten. That information helps the medical team more than you'd think. Do not induce vomiting unless poison control specifically directs you to. The safe alternative, for that tall, dramatic spike, that cottage garden romance, plant snapdragons, Antirhinum majus, same verticality, same color range from purple through pink to cream and white, completely non-toxic to children and pets. I grow them along my fence line every year. The hummingbirds love them just as much as they ever loved the foxglove. Plant number 3 is the one that surprises people most because it doesn't look dangerous. It looks like a wedding. Tiny white bells on arching stems, that clean, sweet fragrance. Lily of the valley is everything people imagine a safe, delicate, old-fashioned garden flower should be. It's in wedding bouquets. It's in poems. It's in paintings. It's also got 38 known cardiac compounds running through every part of it. The leaves, the flowers, the roots, and here's the part that stops people, the red berries it produces in late summer. Those berries look like something you'd scatter on a fruit salad. A child sees them and thinks, food. I want to pause here for a second. I had a patient, years ago now, whose little one had eaten a handful of what she called the pretty red berries from Grandma's garden. I won't tell you more than that. I'll just tell you it's the reason I'm covering this plant at number 3 instead of leaving it off the list entirely. Same mechanism as foxglove at the core. Compounds that interfere with how the heart's electrical pump is controlled. But the berries make lily of the valley uniquely attractive to children in a way the other plants on this list aren't. That's what puts it here. Lily of the valley spreads. And that's the first thing to understand about removing it. It's a ground cover that runs on horizontal underground stems called rhizomes, and any piece you leave behind will resprout. Removing an established bed is genuinely hard work and a multi-season job. Set that expectation before you start. Wear gloves, long sleeves, and be meticulous. Rake the bed after pulling and check for any remaining plant material. It all goes in sealed bags to the trash. If it's fruiting season and you can see the red berries, pick every cluster off first before you start pulling plants. Those berries are the most dangerous piece of this plant and the most important thing to get out of reach immediately. Signs of exposure, similar pattern to foxglove. Nausea, stomach pain, and vomiting in the first phase, followed by heart rhythm disturbances, dizziness, and confusion. The berries are the primary concern with young children because they look edible and they're concentrated. If a child has eaten any amount of the red berries, any amount at all, treat it as an emergency. Do not wait for symptoms to appear before you call. The safe alternative, for that delicate, low-growing white ground cover look, plant sweet alyssum, or white ajuga. Sweet alyssum gives you fragrant white flowers close to the ground, zero toxicity, and it fills in beautifully. Ajuga gives you the same spreading habit with lovely foliage and small flower spikes. Either one is completely safe for the whole family, children and pets included. Plant number 4 takes us indoors. Dumb cane, or by its Latin name, Dieffenbachia, is one of the most popular houseplants in America. Walk into any garden center, any big box store, any florist, and you'll find it. And I understand why. It's a gorgeous plant. Those big, broad, variegated leaves, all that creamy green and white, it lights up a dark corner beautifully. It contains tiny structures, imagine microscopic needles, sharp as glass, that are released the moment you bite into any part of the plant. They drive into the soft lining of the mouth, the throat, the tongue. The swelling that follows can be rapid and dramatic. That's exactly how this plant earned its common name, dumb cane. Dumb in the old sense of the word, mute, unable to speak. Historical records document this plant being deliberately used as a punishment during the era of Caribbean slavery, specifically because forced contact caused this painful, silencing swelling. It's a dark piece of history attached to a very pretty plant. In a toddler or a cat, that swelling in the airway isn't just painful. It's a breathing emergency. The sap is also a skin and eye irritant on contact. This is one where the danger is immediate, not delayed, which makes it both more and less dangerous depending on the situation. More, because it escalates fast. Less, because you usually know something's wrong right away. Dumb cane's real risk isn't the garden, it's the living room. It's the shelf that looks safely out of reach until a toddler figures out the couch is a step stool, or the cat decides the bookcase top is a launch pad. If you have young children or pets in the house and you want to keep it, it needs to be behind a closed and latched door. Not probably out of reach, actually inaccessible. Honestly, consider rehoming it. Garden centers and plant swap groups will take a healthy Dieffenbachia happily. If you'd rather keep it, a glass-fronted cabinet with a latch is a real option. The point is containment, not just elevation. When you're handling it yourself for repotting or pruning, wear gloves and don't touch your face. If sap gets on your skin, rinse immediately with soap and water. Signs of exposure. And this one is immediate, which is both the frightening part and the useful part. Intense burning in the mouth, tongue, and throat. Drooling, difficulty swallowing, swelling of the lips or tongue. You will know something is wrong. The question is how quickly you act on it. In children and cats especially, throat swelling can move toward the airway fast. If there is any visible swelling in the mouth or throat, or any difficulty breathing, that is a 911 call, not a poison control call. Those two are different in urgency, and you don't want to mix them up in a moment of panic. Emergency steps. Skin exposure. Rinse with cool water immediately, soap and water if you have it. Mouth exposure. Rinse gently with cool water. Don't scrub. Don't induce vomiting. Call poison control and they'll walk you through the next steps based on how severe it looks. Airway involvement or difficulty breathing? Call 911. Don't hesitate on that one. The safe alternative, for that lush, tropical, variegated indoor look, try prayer plants, calathea, or peperomia. All three thrive in the same low-light conditions that make Dieffenbachia so popular. All three give you dramatic pattern leaves, and all three are completely non-toxic to children and pets. My favorite is calathea by the back window. It's like having a living painting in the corner. Plant number 5 is the one I feel the most urgency about. And I don't say that to alarm you. I say it because the data is stark. Sago palm, which looks like a small, elegant, prehistoric palm tree, is one of the most lethal plants for dogs in the United States. I'm not using the word lethal loosely. The ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center consistently ranks it among the top causes of fatal plant ingestions in dogs annually. The problem is a compound called psychosin, and to explain it in plain terms, psychosin is essentially a delayed chemical attack on the liver. Think of the liver as your body's water treatment facility. It filters everything that comes through. Psychosin breaks that facility. In dogs, and to a lesser extent cats, even a small amount, a handful of seeds, a few chewed fronds, can cause liver failure within 72 hours. The ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center puts the fatality rate in dogs at 50 to 75%. Even with aggressive veterinary treatment, the seeds, those round orange-red seeds that appear at the base of mature plants, are the most concentrated source. And they fall off. They roll across the patio. They end up in the grass. A dog that picks things up off the ground, which is most of them, is at real risk around a mature sago palm with seeds. What makes this especially difficult is that the initial symptoms don't look like an emergency. Vomiting, lethargy, maybe a bit of wobbliness. Owners often think the dog ate something that didn't agree with them and wait. By the time the liver damage becomes apparent, 72 to 96 hours may have passed. Time that could have been treatment time. If sago palm is in your yard and you have a dog, my honest recommendation is to remove it. This is one case where I don't think the landscaping benefit outweighs the risk, but if you choose to keep it, and I understand some people will, here's what absolutely has to happen. Fence it completely, and I mean a real barrier, not a decorative garden border, something your dog cannot get under, through, or around. Then inspect the surrounding ground every week for fallen seeds and pick them up immediately with gloved hands. The seeds are the highest risk element, and they're not always obvious in grass. This is a weekly task for the life of the plant. When removing the plant entirely, wear gloves, bag all parts, including the root ball in sealed trash bags, and triple bag the seeds specifically. Then walk your property and check for any seeds that may have rolled away or been carried by birds. A single overlooked seed on a lawn is still a risk. Signs of toxicity in a dog: vomiting, often within 15 minutes to a few hours of ingestion, lethargy, loss of appetite, wobbling, or weakness. Then, as the liver involvement develops, yellow-tinged whites of the eyes or gums. That yellow tinge is serious. If you see it, time has already passed. The goal is to get to the vet before that stage. If your dog has had any access to a sago palm and shows any of those signs, call your vet or an emergency animal hospital immediately. Tell them you suspect sago palm. Those 3 words matter. For cats, less likely to chew on garden plants, but any suspected ingestion is still a vet call. Same urgency. The safe alternative, for that architectural tropical palm silhouette, plant a pygmy date palm. Phoenix robellini, almost identical look, feathery arching fronds, sculptural trunk, completely non-toxic. Or try a lady palm, Rapis excelsa, excellent in partial shade, graceful, and safe. Either one gives you everything sago palm offers without the risk attached to it. Plant number 6 is one I want to handle carefully because it's both very common and very misunderstood. English ivy, Hedera helix. It's the quintessential cottage garden plant. It covers walls, fills shady corners, trails from hanging baskets. It's so familiar that most people I talk to are genuinely surprised when I mention toxicity. Here's the reality. The leaves of English ivy contain compounds, a type of saponin along with some alkaloids, that act as irritants when ingested. Now, it's worth being honest about the spectrum here. The toxicity of English ivy, in most cases, is significantly less acute than what we've talked about with oleander, foxglove, or sago palm. An adult who touches English ivy might get a contact dermatitis rash. A child who eats a few leaves may vomit and have stomach cramping, but it's not typically life-threatening in small amounts for humans, though it needs a poison control call regardless. The more serious concern is cats and dogs. For them, the digestive effects are more pronounced: vomiting, diarrhea, excessive drooling, abdominal pain, insignificant ingestion. Neurological signs like muscle weakness or difficulty coordinating movement can occur. The other issue with IV is contact dermatitis. The sap from English ivy, especially when you're pruning or pulling it, contains a falcarinol-like compound that can cause a rash that looks a lot like poison ivy on sensitive individuals. I've seen people in the emergency department who didn't know what hit them. They thought they were just pulling vines on a Saturday afternoon. If you have English ivy and young children or pets, the key rule is access. Ivy on a high wall, well above reach, that's a lower concern. Ivy as ground cover in a yard where a dog or toddler plays freely, that's a higher one. You don't necessarily need to rip it all out, but you do need to be honest about what grows where and who has access to it. When you prune or remove it, gloves, long sleeves, wash your hands and arms thoroughly afterward. The sap is the main irritant, so keeping it off your skin and out of your eyes is the priority. If you're removing large quantities, safety glasses are worth putting on. Unlike the cardiac toxin plants we've covered, English ivy can generally go in yard waste or compost in most areas. Signs of exposure: on the skin, redness, itching, a blistery rash appearing within a few hours, especially on the arms and hands. It can look a lot like poison ivy on sensitive individuals. Ingestion in children: nausea, vomiting, stomach pain. In pets: vomiting, diarrhea, drooling, possible weakness. Any suspected ingestion in a child: call poison control. Any suspected ingestion in a pet: call your vet. The safe alternative: for that trailing, climbing vine look, try Creeping Jenny for ground coverage, or native clematis for a climbing vine. Creeping Jenny gives you the same low-maintenance spreading habit in shade, and the golden leaf variety brightens a dark corner beautifully. Native clematis climbs a fence or trellis just as willingly as ivy. Both are completely safe for children and pets. Plant number 7. This is the one that keeps me up at night the most because of the combination of factors that make it so easy to get wrong. Autumn crocus, Colchicum autumnale, not to be confused with spring crocus, which is generally lower in toxicity risk. Autumn crocus is something else entirely. It blooms in fall, late September through October. And here's what makes it so easy to mix up. When it blooms, it has no leaves. It sends up flowers directly from bare ground, which looks almost magical. Then in spring, it sends up leaves and sets seeds, but by then, the flowers are gone. So the plant almost never looks like what people picture as crocus. It contains colchicine, a compound that was actually used historically in gout treatment and is still used in pharmaceutical form under strict medical supervision. In the plant, uncontrolled, it's a serious poison. Colchicine interferes with cell division, which sounds abstract until you think about what that means for rapidly dividing cells in the body. The lining of the digestive tract, bone marrow, the cells that make blood. Well, and I always come back to this, there's a reason pharmaceutical colchicine comes with an extremely precise dosing protocol and blood monitoring. The margin between therapeutic and toxic is very narrow. Out in the garden, there's no margin at all. The bulbs look like wild garlic or onion bulbs. The leaves in spring have been mistaken for wild garlic. That mistaken identity has resulted in serious poisonings. If you have young children or pets, my recommendation here is the same as the sago palm. Remove it. There are too many points of confusion with this plant. The unusual blooming cycle, the bulbs that look like wild garlic, the leaves that have been mistaken for edible plants. The toxicity is severe enough that the ornamental value doesn't justify the risk in a family garden. When you remove it, wear gloves. The corms, the underground bulb-like structures, are the most concentrated source of colchicine. Bag them in sealed trash bags for household disposal. Do not compost them. Keep children away from the removal area and mark the spot afterward. Check the following spring for any reemergence from corm fragments you may have missed. Signs of toxicity. Pay attention here, because this one is deceptive. The first phase looks ordinary: burning in the mouth, nausea, vomiting, stomach cramping. That can last up to 24 hours and be mistaken for a stomach bug. Don't let that fool you or anyone around you into waiting. Then the second phase begins. Within 1 to 7 days, the effects reach the bone marrow, the kidneys, the liver, the heart. There is no antidote. Treatment is supportive only. This is why you call poison control immediately, before symptoms even develop, the moment you know or suspect ingestion, not after the vomiting confirms it. Right then, the safe alternative for that soft purple autumn bloom, plant saffron crocus, Crocus sativus. It looks almost identical to the average eye. It's completely non-toxic, and it actually produces the saffron spice as a bonus. Or try Cyclamen hedera. Beautiful fall-blooming flowers in pink and white at ground level, safe for children and pets, and genuinely stunning in a shaded bed. 7 plants. I know that's a lot to take in at once, and I want to say, if 1 or 2 of these are in your garden right now, don't panic. Information is what you do first. Then you make a calm decision. The bottom line is simple: a garden should be a safe place. The Creator filled this earth with an abundance of beautiful plants, more than we could ever grow in a lifetime, most of them gentle and generous, and without a shred of harm in them. There's no reason to keep something in your garden that puts the people and animals you love at risk. There's always a better option. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with something practical. Write down this number and put it somewhere you'll find it in a hurry. 1-800-222-1222. That's U.S. Poison Control. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, free of charge. And for pet emergencies specifically, the ASPCA Animal Poison Control Center is 888-426-4435. That one charges a consultation fee, but it's worth knowing. Now, I'd genuinely love to hear from you down below, because here's what I want to know. Of these 7 plants, how many were you already aware were dangerous? And this is the one I'm really curious about. Have you ever had a scare in your own garden? A close call with a plant that turned out to be something other than what you thought? Those stories matter. They help the next person who reads through these comments. Leave your answer below, and I'll read everyone. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you, and may He keep your garden and everyone in it safe.